Hey everybody, this is Perch, and one real quick question, and then a more significant question, I think, worth talking about. I'm going to read them off before I start driving around. So I'm in the car, but I'm stationary at the moment because I need to read. The first question is the simple one, and a couple people have asked me this, and I thought it was kind of a gag, and then I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the question is, do you eat breakfast burritos? And the answer is no, not usually. I tend to do a very light, very, very light breakfast or no breakfast. That's the breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so I don't eat it at all. How about that? Huh? Take that, body. Anyway, I typically don't eat much breakfast, and breakfast burrito would be way too heavy for me to start my day off on. But anyway, there you go. The mystery is revealed. I don't know why anyone cares. The second question is kind of the more significant one. I'm not going to mention the name, but like half of you or more would recognize it. And the question basically goes, "Hey, I listen to your videos. I don't always agree with what you say, but you do make some good points. The question I have is, why should I write something different from what I'm hired for? I write the story that I write. I create the comics that I create. The editors and the company must like it because they keep giving me work. They like what I produce. If they like what I produce, why am I supposed to turn around and then write something different? I see people complaining, but if the editor is hiring me to do a very specific job, why am I not supposed to do that job?" And then the mail goes on with other things. But that's an interesting question. And the answer that I would have, at least my opinion, again, it's my opinion, it's not a fact, or this is one of those things that's not a hard answer. When you ask me about overshipping, there's actually facts and proof. There is a one right answer. But in this case, there's not. But here's my opinion. And my opinion is the writer is correct. So, um, I mean, I'm sure people don't like to hear it. I'll actually get this car in motion now. But look, it is true that if you are hired to do a job and then you do the job you were hired to do, but people don't like the job you did, then, again, but you did exactly what you were told to do. The fault or the question or the confusion lies a lot more with the management, the leadership, and the company than the person who was hired to do a job, did the job they were hired to do, and then but it wasn't what people liked. And I'll give you this analogy. Again, it's a weird analogy, but we have fast food analogies. We'll kind of back with the breakfast burrito here again for a minute. If you go to work for McDonald's, right? You apply to work for McDonald's, and in the job interview, you say, "I'm a vegan and I hate meat. And when I get into, when I start, just so you know, I'm going to push people not to eat hamburgers. I'm only going to sell the Impossible Burger. I'm only going to sell the plant-based burgers. I'm going to try and urge people not to buy the beef and the chicken and everything else." And you're at McDonald's, and the hiring manager is like, "Sounds good to me. That's great. Yeah, that we could use some people in here to push those Impossible Burgers. Yeah, you should do that. No problem at all. You're hired." And then if you go into work and you proceed to insult people who do not buy the meat-based burgers, you're an idiot because, well, I mean, the dumb part is, why are you working for McDonald's? I mean, it really does kind of call into question, what in the world are you doing at McDonald's in the first place? Unless that kind of routes back to my other video about, like, why are people going to get themselves involved in hobbies and things that are the opposite of what they like, and then try and change those things. But anyway, without going down that path again. Um, Look, on some level, you said, "This is what I'm known for, telling people not to eat meat. I'm hired to do a job at this place that sells meat. I tell the hiring manager I'm going to try and get people not to eat meat." You then proceed to do what you say, and when you're selling burgers, you're like, "You don't want that. You want the plant-based burger." And then customers get mad at you. Like, "Why are you trying to, I just want a burger. Why are you trying to push this other stuff on me? Just give me what I asked for." Um, at some point you can say, "Well, this is a bad employee," but you also have to go, what manager hired this? Like, what? Why in the world did you bring somebody in to do this? Uh, now, comics and any kind of creative field, it is creative. And so it's not as simple as meat, and it's I don't even really like to boil it down into those terms because it's not that simple. You have a lot of complexity. In many cases, when you're hired to write a comic or draw a comic or do something like that, you're hired for the imagination in your head, and the editor does not have the story. They want a certain feeling, they want a certain approach or a take for the character, but they don't have the story in their head. If they had it, arguably they wouldn't hire the writer in the first place. They just jot it down themselves. On their lunch break, they would go out and just crank out a story and save the money. But the editor, so it's a little bit different than that. It's not as simple. But at the same time, I think the question is a very valid one, which is when somebody goes into work for comics, and I know this for a fact, in many cases, some of the biggest names that people complain about, that people say, oh, this writer's terrible, they have a terrible take, they don't understand the character at all, everything else. The writer is upfront with that. It's not a secret. It's not like and again, I was not in the room, so I'm speculating here, but I'm willing to bet that Ta-Nehisi Coates, when they said, hey, you want to do Captain America, I'm willing to bet he did not go, oh, sure, I'm a huge Captain America fan. I have every issue. I know exactly what makes a character tick. Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to do that. And yeah, I know that a lot of my essays and things tend to be very critical of America, but I've been dying to do a different take where there's a whole different view of America, something very inspirational. I've been dying for it. I guarantee you, he did not say that. I can pretty much guess that at some point he sat there and went, well, let's have him question what it means to be an American, and let's have the Red Skull will be our villain, and we'll have Captain America defeat the Red Skull by, like kind of like a 1980s comedy movie where he has a hidden camera and he gets the Red Skull to just ramble on about kind of crazy stuff, and that's how he'll defeat him, by the power of hidden camera. And some editor was like, cool, yep, on board. I've done this sort of aspect of this video before, and I know it's gotten some people arguing with me. And it's many of the people who are arguing, I think, didn't quite get the point. And the point is not to say, hey, that makes the terrible story okay. That means somebody who's writing something derivative and terrible and awful is their hands are clean. They have no responsibility in this at all. Of course they have responsibility. Of course, people who are coming in, you want to put your best foot forward and everything else. But it is an interesting conundrum when your employer hires you to do a job. We want you to do this. They're sending you a message, meaning we looked at your work, we looked at your resume, we looked at kind of what you brought to the table, and we decided you're the right person. You're the person we want. We want more of this. Let's have more of this. That's hiring managers, they don't go to an interview loop and they're like, all right, who's the worst candidate? Oh, it's this person. Okay, yeah, let's hire the worst possible pick for this job, and let's make sure they do the opposite of what would be successful. They don't do that. They hire somebody for a reason. They hire somebody because they like their take, their pitch, their whatever it happens to be. And if they do that, and then the person comes in and executes on that pitch, and the customer's like, well, what the hell? Hopefully there's a lesson there for the writer or the artist, or it might be, but in this case, it probably applies more to the writer. There's a lesson in there for the writer, and the lesson is, hey, if you want critical acclaim, if you want your name to be attached to things with higher sales, you probably want to do some more market research. You want to get a little bit more aligned to kind of the customer base, because ultimately that's going to give you more prestige, more fame, more royalty checks, other things. You can market yourself as a bankable writer. I guarantee you. By the way, Tom Taylor, when he's putting out his not his resume, but when he's pitching kind of the successful things he's been a part of, he does not come in and go, hey, I was a writer for X-Men Red. The comic didn't actually sell terribly well. It was okay at the beginning, but it plummeted fast. But I guarantee you that Tom Taylor hypes up Deceased as often as he can. I guarantee you that is front and center. Why? Because that was a huge hit. That comic book sold incredibly well. People seem to like it. Got good review scores. That's the kind of stuff that he's going to promote up. If you, by contrast, if you're a comic company and you're like, you know what, I do not want any kind of zombie take or Heroes Gone Bad take or anything else. I want something. I want a good, solid, G-rated, My Little Pony like script where there's happiness and rainbows and even the farts smell like perfume. You're like, I know the right person, Tom Taylor. No, that would be a stupid decision. If you're going to make a remake of Bambi and you want it to be a family-friendly G-rated movie, you don't hire Quentin Tarantino. You don't hire David Lynch. I mean, that would be hilarious. But no, you don't do that. So again, this isn't to say that writers and people are absolved of doing good work, but this question is a reasonable one, which is basically, hey, if I'm hired to do a particular job and I do that job, why should I be hired to do a particular job and then come in and do a completely separate job? That would be stupid. That would be wrong. And I agree. That's an interesting way of looking at it. It's true. At the end of the day, you're hired to do a particular thing, and you should execute on that job based on what you're being told to do. Please, no crazy analogies about like World War II or anything like that. I'm talking about basic employment. You all know what I mean. Anyway, there's a lot of other nuance, but that's the answer to this question. There you go. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Yeah, I got nothing else really. Thanks for listening.